This is continuous coverage
Continuous coverage.
in the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell from the Hidden Killers podcast.
Hidden Killers podcast.
That it is court in session this morning. Let's get an update on what's been presented to the jury thus far in the case against Lori Vallow Daybell.
The long-awaited trial of Lori Vallow Daybell, who faces multiple charges, including first-degree murder in the deaths of her children, Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow, and conspiracy to commit murder in the death of her former husband's wife, Tammy Daybell, began today. The prosecution and defense presented their opening statements to the jury, and the state's first witness was called. The trial began with Judge Stephen Boyce reading jury instructions and outlining the charges against Lori Daybell. During opening statements, Fremont County Prosecutor Lindsey Blake told the jury that the case was about money, power, and sex. She detailed the events leading up to the deaths of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy, painting a picture of Lori as a manipulative individual who used people to get what she wanted. In the defense's opening statement, Jim Archibald focused on Lori's background, describing her as a kind and loving mother interested in religion. Archibald emphasized that the jurors should focus on the evidence presented during the trial and decide if there was reasonable doubt about Lori's involvement in the deaths. The timeline of events, as presented during the trial, began in October 2018, when Lori first met Chad Daybell, an author of doomsday novels, at a conference. Both were married to other people at the time, and their spouses were alive and well. Over time, their religious beliefs evolved, and they began calling themselves James and Elena, believing they were religious figures on a mission to gather the 144,000 people necessary for the end of times. In October 2019, Tammy Daybell, Chad's wife, was approached by a gunman in her driveway, originally thought to be carrying a paintball gun. Later that month, she died suddenly, and the Utah medical examiner determined that she died of asphyxiation at the hands of another. Lori and Chad married just weeks later in Hawaii, exchanging malachite rings that had been ordered before Tammy's death. The trial's first witness, Kay Woodcock, is the grandmother of J.J. Vallow and the sister of Charles Vallow, Lori's former husband who was killed in July 2019. Kay testified that J.J. was born at 30 weeks and had drugs in his system when he was born. The state took custody of J.J., and Kay and her husband Larry became his caregivers. Lori and her then-husband, Charles, later adopted J.J. after his biological parents failed to regain custody. During Kay's testimony, she described how Lori and Charles approached her and Larry about adopting JJ, and they ultimately agreed. She also detailed the timeline of events leading up to JJ and Tylee's disappearance, including her attempts to contact Lori and her concerns for the children's well-being. Throughout the trial, gruesome details about the discovery of Tylee and JJ's remains were revealed, including photos of their bodies and the items used to dispose of them. These details brought tears to the eyes of the Woodcock family and visibly affected the jury. The defense attempted to establish alibis for Lori during the time of the deaths, claiming she was in her Rexburg apartment when JJ died and with Melanie Boudreau in Hawaii when Tammy died. Archibald also stressed that the jury should focus on Lori's actions and not those of her co-conspirators, Chad Daybell and her brother, Alex Cox. As the trial continues, witnesses such as April Raymond, Melanie Gibb, and Zulema Pastenes are expected to testify, providing further insight into Lori's relationships and actions during the events leading up to the deaths of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. April Raymond, a former friend of Lori, is expected to discuss the significant changes in Lori's personality and religious beliefs, which she observed after Lori's involvement with Chad Daybell. She will likely testify about conversations she had with Lori, detailing her extreme beliefs and her increasing obsession with the end of times. Melanie Gibb, a close friend of Lori and Chad, may provide crucial testimony about the couple's beliefs, their relationship, and their plans. Gibb had been asked by Lori to lie to police about JJ's whereabouts during the investigation into his disappearance. Additionally, Gibb recorded a phone call with Lori and Chad discussing their spiritual beliefs and the deaths of Charles Vallow and Tammy Daybell, which could be a crucial piece of evidence for the prosecution. Zulema Pastenes, the widow of Alex Cox, Lori's brother, will likely testify about her relationship with the family and any knowledge she has about the events leading up to the deaths. Alex Cox, who died in December 2019, is believed to have been involved in the deaths of Tylee and JJ, as well as the attempt on Tammy's life. Pastena's testimony may provide more context to the alleged conspiracy and the involvement of Lori and Chad in the murders. As the trial progresses, jurors will be presented with a complex web of relationships, religious beliefs, and alleged criminal actions. The prosecution will continue to build its case, attempting to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Lori Vallow Daybell was not only involved but orchestrated the deaths of her children and Tammy Daybell. On the other hand, the defense will work to establish doubt about Lori's guilt, focusing on her character as a loving mother and questioning the evidence presented by the prosecution. They will likely emphasize the burden of proof and argue that the prosecution has not met this standard. The world will watch closely as the fate of Lori Vallow Daybell is decided and the questions surrounding these tragic deaths are finally answered.
We're going to keep you up to date, updates all throughout the day, and then at the end of the day, as soon as we get that trial audio so you can hear it for yourself, we will be posting it so you can listen and hear the moment-by-moment coverage inside the courtroom at the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell. Keep it here.
This is continuous coverage
Continuous coverage. Continuous coverage.
in the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell from the Hidden Killers podcast.
Hidden Killers Podcast.